My great-great-grandma was never a scream and run kind of lady, and she stayed in this one home till the day she died. It was a one-bedroom, but it was pretty big because we had a huge family, and she was like the matriarch, so she's always cooking for everybody. So she grew a lot of alfalfa, and those were her fields. She had pretty large fields, but it's very forested. It's higher up in the hills and like in the back country, because often reserves were kind of tucked and hidden away from the rest of the town. So it was pretty remote. But there were some speculations that people made up the wild man because they would hide supplies out in the mountains, and stories of the wild man was just keep looters away. But I mean, the way she described it, it's spooky. Like, that was not somebody in a suit. That was a gross man animal slinking its way through the bush.
Deep in the heart of the southern interior of British Columbia, nestled amidst rugged mountains and deep forests, lies the picturesque Okanagan Valley. This striking region of rolling vineyards and majestic lakes is home to a mystery as ancient as the valley itself. For centuries, this region has been a source of countless whispered tales passed down through the generations of a creature as enigmatic as it is elusive, both feared and revered, a giant slipping through the forest unseen but for glimpses, a presence haunting the deep woods, leaving behind only traces of its existence, the Sasquatch. From the time the first settlers came to the Okanagan Valley in 1811, they'd heard stories from the indigenous people of the wild man who lived in the mountains. Though descriptions and accounts varied, the general consensus was the same. Great, hairy giants lived in the forests of the Okanagan, and though once numerous, by the 1850s they had all but disappeared. These giants were known for their peculiar odors, their penchant for stealing fish, and for leaving behind large footprints. Though considered to be harmless, they were known for capturing humans and holding them captive as pets. In an 1892 article titled The Account of the Similkameen Indians of British Columbia, author Susan Allison wrote of a story of an old chief who had told her of a giant he had come across. He described the creature as being large, black, and resembling a man covered in long, silky hair. In The Shuswap Indians, Part 7 of the Jesup North Pacific Expedition, James Alexander Tate wrote of a race of giants, saying, "A race of giants is believed to have been, until recently, quite numerous. They are great hunters and runners, endowed with immense strength." In the October 20th, 1907 edition of the Victoria Daily Colonist, a story appeared reporting the findings of 19-inch long by 5-inch wide footprints in Vernon, BC. The report stated that there were no people around there to hoax, and the natives were too grave and occupied to manufacture footprints for sport. Many other stories, too numerous to mention, were recorded by early settlers of the Okanagan, including abductions of women and encounters with these big hairy giants. Though each nation has its own name for the wild man: Stenoquin, Tsemequis, Skookum, Stronitum, only one name has truly taken root in popular consciousness: the Stahelis Nation's name, Sasquatch, which, when mispronounced by J.W. Burns in his 1929 article introducing BC's hairy giants, stuck, giving us the name most commonly used today, Sasquatch.
Why Sasquatch Isquis Corley can tilstakakut nut can limt puchiap. So hello, good day. My name's Corley. I come from Windy Bay, also known as West Bank. I am a member of West Bank First Nation. I come from the Squamish Okanagan Nation, and I am a docent at the Senchuips Heritage Museum. My favorite part of my job is being a storyteller. So the stories that we tell are called chaptik. Chaptik is a tool in which we have our own recollection of how things came to be. They pass down our laws and they pass down our societal values. When it comes to storytelling, there's an etiquette. I cannot tell stories that don't belong to me because those are not my stories to tell. I may have knowledge of things, but whether or not I can share them, that kind of goes against our etiquette. The stories that I'll be telling with you today are stories that I got from my own family, and they're also going to be my own interpretations of my culture. So Stronitum is a forest spirit. It's kind of like a bestial man and also known as a dimension walker. And so that means that you're not going to catch this entity. When it shows itself to you, it's because it wants to. Our relationship with Stronitum is ancient, goes long ago. There's a pact between us and Stronitum where if we're in a forest and we happen to come across them, we are to offer up a stone. Now, this can't just be any stone that you found on the ground. It's got to be something that means something to you. So often, within our medicine pouches, we will have certain stones or crystals that mean something to us. And a lot of the times, our elders, when they go for walks, they will have, pockets full of rocks. The purpose of this is Sasquatch or Stronitum has a habit of taking you, and you end up becoming theirs. Man, woman, they're not picky. They'll scoop you up. There's a belief, though, that there's not just one, that there is a whole village of them, and their power source comes from where they live. It's weird saying it out loud, but this is stuff that we grew up with, stuff that we learned. Being a forest spirit, it demands respect. It is a shy spirit. It, for the most part, is quite benign, but like anything, it can turn. So our relationship with the land is that metaphor through Stronitum as well. In our stories, we're told that we were torn from the earth as stolskeloch. So stolskeloch means like people who were torn from the earth. And what the story teaches us is that human and nature are not two separate categories, but rather we're one and the same. So we are nature. And that's why we share those kinships with that spirit. And that goes in with water, it goes in with everything. So, the story that I'm going to share with you is one that goes to my great-great-grandmother. So my great-great-grandmother, she died at 101, and she lived in Vernon, and she ran her own little farm. Now, this was, I believe, in the 50s. So she's up there in the bush, and one of her black horses got out. And it was a naughty horse, so she always had to deal with it. So she grabbed a willow switch ready to spank it. She went out looking for it, but as she's walking, she smells something real rank. Just stink. Now the kind of stink that we try to describe is like, it's like wet dog, but with extra poo. It's very pungent. And she's like, oof. So she's looking around and she sees black, but this isn't her horse. It's on two legs, and the way its hair moves, it's very glossy and it goes whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So her blood goes cold, her hair stands on end, and she just like slowly backs back into her cabin and locks the door. So that is her experience with the wild man. There have been other encounters with Stronitum too. He likes to howl at night. So there are people that when they're hunting after night, they can hear like a ooh, oh, and it's not something you want to mess with, and it's not something you want to go out into the bush and try and find, because being a dimension walker, it takes you, and it's going to take you a really long time before you can make your way back home.
My name is Blaine McMillan. I was in the military for 22 years, Reg Force, 5 years reserve. I joined the service in 1981 after I graduated from high school. I was a life support equipment technician responsible for all the aviation life support to keep the air crew and passengers alive in the event of something disastrous. 10 years of distance ed earned me my degree in criminology, a BA. From University of Manitoba. Turned that into, not that I really needed it to become a commissionaire, but it sure helps. Started working back on CFB Comox was my first base when I first joined and got here in '82 originally. Got interested in the subject of Sasquatches, which I call my big 8-foot tall hairy friends. When just after we moved back to BC, I found at a bookstore a copy of Don Hunter and Rennie DeHinden's book. It was just the paperback copy. And on the front cover, there was a picture of what we commonly refer to as Paddy, the Sasquatch. It was filmed in '67 by Roger Patterson at Bluff Creek. There was like a film strip of 5 or 3 frames of her looking, and we know quite clearly that the creature was female. So it was a fascinating book, and that kind of got my interest up. Time went by, and then I think it was after I came back from Egypt, so it would have been '86, my father and I and 3 other people went out on a hunt for moose and elk and deer in the Kootenays, Palliser River past Radium, on the highway back to Calgary. And it was during that time that I had an incident. There was myself and another younger kid that we were following a set of elk tracks. And then suddenly in front of us there was a track that was not an elk track. And we started to follow that set of tracks. The other kid had asked me, where's the elk tracks? And the elk tracks had gone over to the embankment. And I didn't care about the elk tracks. I was following this thing. And so we backtracked and we found where it had come from. It had come off this hillside. And we had been actually parked on the opposite side of this logged off hill. And as we were walking along, it had cut the corner and was walking ahead of us. So it's an old logging road, and as you get down these old logging roads, you get alders that grow up in the middle. Now, we had discussed, what if we see this thing? And I said, well, we're gonna just unload on it. We're gonna shoot for the center of mass, and once it drops, we're gonna take its head, because nothing lives without its head. Yeah, big and brave, yes. So we got into these alders, and at one point, we couldn't hear any birds. No bees, no bugs, there was no breeze. So what leaves were left, it was late in the fall, there were still some leaves on the trees. There was nothing moving. And then the smell came over us. And we were in the thicket. You couldn't hold your weapon across your chest. You had to hold it like you were at attention kind of thing. And this smell, it was like wet dog, dead seal on the beach for a week kind of smell. Really pungent. And the hackles rose. And I was afraid that this kid was going to be running with a loaded weapon. So I said, Brent, open your breech. He had a pump action 30-06. So he opened his breech. I said, catch the bullet, feed it back into the magazine. And I had a bolt action, so I opened the bolt, let it hang, caught the bullet, fed it back in. I had him turn around and we walked out of there back to back. The smell had come over us like somebody turned on a light switch. So whatever was exuding this pheromone, it's what it is, was very, very close. We never saw it, never heard it. It wasn't moving, it was just suddenly there. But we had been following these tracks. Now we're, every 4.5 feet, there was another imprint. Like a tightrope walker. People, as they walk their tracks, are more side by side. These were perfectly in line, like a tightrope. And into the ground deep enough where I couldn't make a dent in it. So we got out of there and we drove back down to where we were camped. Our fathers, when they showed up, we never told them. I never told my dad till we got back home to my parents' place. Like 3 days later, we didn't tell a soul. And then afterwards, my dad said, we could have gone and taken pictures of the tracks. I was too worried to be ridiculed, which is the problem with a lot of eyewitnesses. So after moving out here, or even actually maybe before moving out here, I heard of this group, this Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and there was this website, and it had all these reports on there, and there was investigators, and there was reports from all over BC and all over Canada and the United States, and some of the reports were like really hairy, like really, but these appeared to be vetted and investigated reports. I thought, well, this is really cool. Then I asked to be an investigator. And they said, well, what can you bring to the table? And I said, well, do you have unfinished reports? They said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, I've lived in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. And a lot of these reports, people use colloquialisms, right? I said, I know what these people are talking about. So they made me an investigator, and I started doing reports that had sat for a long time in all 4 provinces. Now, a witness submits a report for whatever state or whatever, and it kind of gets put into that box, and there could be 10 investigators in that state, say this state of Ohio or whatever, and they'll go through and they'll try to contact the witness. It might take some time. Sometimes the incident happened a long time ago and it's finally reported because the witness has finally got the nerve, or it could be the witness's son that submits it. A lot of the investigations that are done, the investigator doesn't get there. If I had an investigation in Kamloops, I'm not going to saddle up and take off to Kamloops. You just can't be ambulance chasing. That's what they did. So you try to you're only getting their narrative. And by talking to the witness, and not just the one time, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and you pick it apart, and if they're lying, you go revisit them, just as if you were a cop. And you go back and back and back, and you phone them, not always at the same time. You might have to phone them at work, kind of thing, to rattle their cage and say one more thing. This isn't, almost like Columbo, and I love Columbo. So it's that sort of thing. And you can find out whether or not they're BSing you or not. This is what you have to do, because you want to get more factual stuff. Like, do you have photographs of these tracks? So they give you photographs, and then you can go through and you can send the photographs into the organization, and they have a catalog, and they say, yeah, those photographs have come from another place, right? It's bogus. You can't have the same track with the same rocks in the same place at either ends of the continent. It just doesn't work.
In the mid-1980s, a Kelowna resident discovered 2 sets of tracks while out hiking with their dog on the west side of Dilworth Mountain. Though today the area is covered in housing developments, at the time it was still quite wild.
They were out for a walk, and they actually found 2 different sizes of tracks. In the report, there is a spot where they can write in how big the tracks were. So one track was like 17 by 7 inches, and the other track was a lot smaller. It was only like 12 by 5 inches. That would indicate 2 different sizes of creatures, obviously. An adult and a juvenile.
Towards the end of our hike, I came across footprints. I stopped and looked at them and had a good laugh, thinking some kids had gotten creative with plywood cutouts.
However, they could see that it wasn't just flat as if it was a piece of plywood. There was actually shape to the ball of the foot and the heel of the foot, and the toes were, not always in the same position. You could see some changes in them.
Both sets of tracks were barefoot and very human-like in appearance. They appeared to start in a residential area, cross an open field, and proceed uphill to a more forested area. They continued for about 150 yards from where the hiker discovered them and disappeared into the tree line.
My dog's reaction really was what sent me, though. She picked up a scent from the prints and immediately followed them with her nose to them. I never saw her react that way from people's tracks, only from animals, usually deer. She'd run into the trees, following the tracks in a matter of seconds. Her reaction really creeped me out.
Sometimes if you're out there, you just get this feeling like, I don't think I'm going to go down this trail any farther. I think I'm going to turn around and go back. It's part of the lizard part of your brain that says, don't go there. There was a lady that we met in, an elderly lady in the Seashell area in 2005 that we were told about. And we went down to talk to her. And we said, well, have you seen these things? She says, oh yeah. Well, where have you seen them? She points out her kitchen window, right there, those apple trees. I said, well, what do you do? She says, well, if I want some apples, I look out the window. If it's not there, I go out and pick my apples. Sometimes I look out the window and it's standing there taking apples. So I wait. And it just loads its arm up with apples and it walks away. So of course we want to put cameras up and everything else, and she says, no, they're not bothering me. I don't want to bother them. Here, have some apples. And sent us on our way. After my first 3 expeditions, 05, 06, and 07, I had all these notes. So I wrote them down, transcribed them down, and then edited it. My wife had edited it, and I had somebody else edit it as well. So I did that, and what I didn't do is most of the Sasquatch books that you would find they cover the Roger Patterson sighting at Black Creek and the filming at Bluff Creek, rather. They'll have the William Rowe incident, the Albert Austin incident, Ape Canyon on Mount St. Helens, right? These are classics, and they've been told and analyzed to death. I did not do that. Instead, I put you, the reader, in the passenger seat of my truck. You ride shotgun through everything that happens, right? Conversations, driving down the road and seeing things or doing things or organizing whatever, all of that, you are a witness to it. Just by reading it, it puts you right there in the passenger seat through it all.
As I said, human and nature were not two separate categories, but rather were one and the same. And nature misses people. It likes it when you're hiking on it. It likes it when you're utilizing it to make yourself more strong and more beautiful. Every time you tackle those hiking trails, or if you're rock climbing, it likes to listen to you talk. It likes it when you guys sing. It likes it when you guys are laughing or sleeping on it or doing your duty, that reciprocating nature of harvesting and putting back what you've taken. So remember that. Like, it's not just a dead ground that you're walking on. It's a reflection of you. It's a reflection of our histories as people. We share genetics with plants and animals. We are made up of minerals. We are made up of water. We're even made up of electricity. So we are nature. That's what I want people to think when they go into the forest. And that when they see something in the bush, exercise caution, utmost respect, and don't be fumbling for a camera, because you know what? No one's gonna believe you. No one's gonna believe your shaky camera footage. Just be like, well, that happened, and then, back away slowly, go clean your pants, and enjoy the rest of your camping trip.
In 1966, a family was camping in a large campground in Penticton, BC, alongside the highway. In the middle of the night, while the family was fast asleep, the mother witnessed something that left her deeply upset.
They had a cooler, a styrofoam cooler, and they had put it well underneath the tent trailer. The mother had woke up and she heard something and saw something outside with the cooler. The cooler was smashed. There was like hot dogs and some fruit that were taken. The father said, oh, it was a bear. There was no bear tracks. And bears, when they get into stuff, they snuffle a lot because their nose is their primary sensory organ. But evidently, the lady had looked outside and she saw something was not a bear.
The family awoke and my mother was extremely upset. White as a ghost, as they say. Later that morning, while my mother and I were alone, she said to me, whatever was out there last night wasn't a bear and it wasn't a man. I don't know what it was, but I could see its shadow on the tent wall. She didn't start to calm down until late in the afternoon.
So, again, when I was talking to the, it was actually not the witness, but the witness's child, many, many years later, he described the area, and it was a campsite just off the side of the highway. I think I even camped there myself, but it's all developed now. Like myself, my first incident, I didn't tell my dad because I was scared of being ridiculed. I've done reports from loggers, big, strong he-men. They don't tell people anything, that they see things. You know that they see things, because especially the fallers, they're sitting there on the hillside having their lunch. And they see something walking a lower below them, right? As they're sitting there, they got their chainsaw set beside them. This thing's walking by them. Are they going to tell anybody? No, they're not going to tell you, because they're afraid of being ridiculed.
There is a hesitancy to speak about Stronitum. There is a belief that with any of our spirits that live on this land, that by talking about them too much kind of invokes them. And that's why when we do talk about them, it's with respect. And you need a healthy respect. That's what's going to keep you alive. There are lots of creatures that live on these lands, and they are ancient, they are primordial, they have been here before us. And there's so much that we don't understand, or perhaps there was so much we did understand, but that knowledge had been taken from us. And so we're kind of, feeling our way through the dark here.
If I was to be a witness and I was to submit this on the actual report that the public can view, my name is never there as a witness. Witnesses are very, very afraid of giving out their information. So it's never published, ever, so that they can feel secure in that they're not going to be ridiculed, because that's one of their biggest things.
In 1974, a young boy had an experience that would leave him unsettled for decades. He awoke early in the morning and, looking out of his bedroom window, saw a large animal standing and facing the sliding glass door of the house.
They had an orchard, and so the property was on the east side of the lake. So when the sun's rising, it's coming from over the mountain behind them. So he woke up. Their house was a rancher, was an L-shaped with the small part of the L projecting out, and that was where his bedroom was. He woke up early in the morning. The sun is starting to come up, and he looked down along the side of the long length of the house, and there on the patio, in front of the French doors, which led into like the dining room, he saw this thing standing, and it was as tall as the eaves of the house, as tall as the gutter. Now, the house was dark, and the only thing I can surmise, and what he believed, was it was looking at its reflection in the patio doors. And he watched it for quite some time. And then it just turned, and when it turned to the left. So it didn't turn to look towards him. And he was kind of looking through the curtains of his window. It turned to the left, and it just calmly walked down through the yard, stepped over a 4-foot fence, and walked down through the orchard and disappeared. This terrified him to the point where he never went camping. He never joined scouts. He never was in cadets. Later, when he got married, his wife took the kids camping. If he was to drive, he would drive only in the daytime. He wouldn't drive at night. He was terrified of what he would see.
You cannot believe just how nervous I am doing this. I am reticent about relaying this story because of the amount of grief and ridicule I have taken over the years from people that I have told. To say that I have been mortified by this encounter is an understatement, and thus I am hugely reluctant to do this. I do this only because I constantly read about sightings in BC, the Okanagan, and the west coast of North America in the hopes that I can get a better understanding of what I saw. It has impacted me enough that I won't camp, and I won't even drive from the coast to the Okanagan at night. That is the source of amusement and ridicule for people when I tell them about this, that it has affected me so much. Even thinking about this right now and writing about it has the hairs on the back of my neck standing up.
If people have reports, if they have incidents, they don't have to be afraid. They can, go online. It's all anonymous. Submit it to the BFRO. Eventually somebody will pick it up. And if you're close enough to where an investigator is, then we'll come out.
Our forest spirit is real. Our dimension walkers are real. And that's my interpretation. Those are my beliefs. That's my culture. And that's the fun thing, is like, you don't have to believe a darn thing I tell you today. But for folks that come in and they're looking for the truth, and they come and they approach my community wanting to know these things, you got to remember, you're not the first one to do this. From the time settlers first washed ashore, they had been questioning, what is that? And when we tell them, that answer's just not good enough. And so then we end up with legends, and we end up with a misunderstanding of what that is. These are reflections of nature. They are reflections of us. And We, in our culture, we don't believe in inherent good or inherent evil. What's given is what's returned. That's how a spirit works. And so for those that think it's the missing link of humanity, that it's an escaped ape, or it's a wild man that just, succumbed to his nature out in the bush, sure. But from what we know is that there are many different flavors of wild men out there. Ours up here is pretty tame, but if you head down to the coast, that's where they get more aggressive. They have a tendency to steal your clams and your women, and that's terrifying to me. There are lady forest spirits, there are male forest spirits, and here he keeps to himself. He's not a huge problem to us. There are just things that to keep in mind to keep safe. Having that rock, or keeping out of the forest after dark, or just walking with respect and being aware of your surroundings too. What are you smelling? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? Because your brain's not going to want to believe what it sees. That's always what happens. It's always going to want to find something that's logical. But this earth is old. It's way older than us. And sometimes there are just some things out there that we're not gonna understand. And we just gotta accept that.